Welcome to the Friends of FEADies podcast, brought to you by FEAD Canada, our funding partner, ISED, and founding partner, the Saskatchewan Food Centre. This show is all about celebrating the incredible journeys of female entrepreneurs in the agri-food and food manufacturing sector. We're here to dish out the secrets of success and serve up a side of inspiration along the way. We are the FEAD program where dreams are made, businesses are born, and the agri-food world is your oyster. Let's dine together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friends of FEADies podcast. I am your interim host today, Kendra, and I am the executive director of FEAD. And today I am very excited to be interviewing your new host, Lindsay Toth. Lindsay is our new member and marketing coordinator here at FEAD, and she has an incredible history in the agri-food sector, specifically in marketing and branding. So we are so excited to have her today. Lindsay, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. A little bit nervous, but mostly just excited and ready to touch base.
I know the whole member base is so excited to have you. And they're so excited to hear about your expertise and experience. You've worked at two iconic companies in Saskatchewan and in the agri-food sector, as well as you have incredible experience with other entrepreneurial incubators from across the ecosystem, especially in Saskatchewan. We are just so lucky and so blessed to have you on our team. And I know even before we hired you, lots of our members had said, hey, if you ever can bring in anybody from Three Farmers, we would love to hear from them. So I know that this is going to be a well listened to podcast, and I know that we've had a lot of requests from our member base about people with experience at Three Farmers because they're just such a great success story. Other than your career history, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background. Tell us about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess kind of going more into education and that sort of thing. I was very much like an art girl in high school, elementary school, honors art. I was in drama. So that was kind of what directed me to go towards design and marketing and that sort of thing. So I, after high school, went to the U of S for a year and was doing arts and science and just felt it wasn't quite as applicable to what I wanted to be doing as possible as I was hoping. So I ended up going to Medicine Hat College and I got a degree in visual communications there. And it was a great program because it was design, it was painting, it was learning about marketing and just kind of all the things I was really interested in. So after that, I was working at a local marketing agency here in Saskatoon for about just over 7 years. And then doing a little bit of moving around. So I was at another agency, which is where I did my work for Great Western. And then I stopped over at Sarita briefly, and then Three Farmers. And yeah, when I saw the job posting for FEAD, I was like, oh, this just job posting just seems like it was written for me. I don't know. So, yeah, that's kind of the career stuff.
I remember the day you messaged me on LinkedIn and I screenshot it and sent it up to the president of the food center. And I said, I don't think this girl can be real. There's not a chance that she exists. You had a really brief experience, but a really deep dive of an experience when you were at Sarita. You got to do a lot in a really short amount of time. Tell me about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say kind of one of the really pivotal things when I was there was their entrepreneurship program was going from square one, which it had been known as for a really long time, to Sask Startup Institute, which is what it is now. So they had Rock and Bloom, I believe, a local agency here, do the initial rebrand, but the actual execution of that had to be all taken over by someone, which ended up being me. So in kind of the course of a month, it was rolling out everything in terms of they launched the website, but just building out all their collaterals, all their slideshows, social media, the sign on the building, just every single little piece that the brand touched. I was in there just working with the getting everything switched over and stuff. And I think I'd like to say it went fairly seamlessly. So yeah.
I would say that that was an incredible success story. I remember when I was an entrepreneur, this was like way back in 2010. And I remember looking at Square One, and I was a young female entrepreneur, and I just didn't really feel like that brand spoke to me. But I see Sask Startup Institute, and I love the brand. I love the touches. When you're dealing with a brand change like that, I know that there's a lot, and this is a question we get frequently as an entrepreneur. It's a really easy thing to like have an internal change, and you're like, well, maybe I need a rebrand. Maybe I need to do all of those, those visual pieces. Do I need a new name? How do you keep track of that when you're in the process of that?
So yeah, it's like, it sounds fairly basic, but just like a list, literally just like a spreadsheet or a list, and just kind of brain dumping every little piece that you can think of. So just starting with the big category of like social media. What pieces all fall into social media? There's profile pictures for every single platform you're on. There's the other photos, all those things. So like just kind of like brain dump buckets of kind of just every piece that your collateral touches. And I also kind of try to give kind of priority numbering to like what's the most important thing. Like if the website's launching this day, I know I want kind of these main pieces to be taken care of, and then something like a presentation deck that we might not use for a couple weeks, I've got a little bit of breathing room on that. So it has to be done by X date, but at least it's on the list, and yeah, you're not rolling into a meeting with the wrong stuff.
Yeah, I love that because as you know, because we've been working together now fairly consistently for almost 2 months, that as a team, we work on a brain dump system, massive to-do list, checking those things off. So how you operate was a great culture fit with our team for sure. Kind of diving into more of the marketing piece and the career piece, why did you choose marketing as a career kind of over that initial path you were taking in like the university career drive towards arts and science?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed when I was in the arts and science program. I just like was kind of having a hard time picturing like where does like the end of this take me? Like what is kind of this preparing me for, or where am I going to go with this? And I just like didn't feel super confident about like how a like a specialty in painting, say, which is kind of like what I was my favorite thing at that time, was going to kind of like obviously like kind of prepare me for going into like the real kind of career world. So when I chose to go to Medicine Hat, part of the big draw was they had it was like an applied program. So you actually did internships as part of the schooling. So
Cool.
you did school all year round, and then your summer break, you were actually working on an internship and doing online courses as part of that. So it was really condensed it down into 3 years of schooling. 3 of the years was over two essentially. So it was like bang bang, but it was a great way to understand if this is actually the kind of work I want to be doing, because so many people go through their education and they've never actually like been in the classroom or been in whatever they're training for. So
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I completely understand the idea that you maybe get through a full university degree. And I know lots of our founders have a similar story where they have university degrees and they got out and they were like, what do I actually do with this? So that's a really cool program. I actually have had some friends that have gone through the Medicine Hat College Viz Comms program, and they're very successful in creative careers, which is sometimes really tricky to do, is get a good footing in a creative career. And I think it's maybe that combination of that work experience mixed with the academics.
yeah.
I know that you had said early in our conversation that you felt like the job ad spoke to you. Thank you, because I was looking for a dream candidate and a dream team member like you. What made you so excited about FEAD?
Yeah, so I would say the most just the work culture at Three Farmers, working for two just incredibly just smart, talented, hardworking women. And actually a lot of the senior staff at Three Farmers is also women. So just that environment I just thrived in, and I really enjoyed it. And so just like seeing that, being on the inside of that and seeing that there's an actual program that's set up to help other businesses become this, like I just thought it was just like, it's just the coolest thing ever. And I've worked for a lot of small companies. So I've like worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs, and I like so respect it. And yeah, it was just kind of like all kind of the things that I really like to do and learn about and be a part of kind of just rolled into one.
I am very biased, but I would like to say we're fun and cool and we love what we do at the team. I know there's always days that are just chaos around here with, the founder emails of like, hey, what do I do here? Where do I find a SKU? Where do I do all of these things? How have you been finding the balance of having so many channels of communication, so many founders, so many different segments? And now that we've expanded across Canada, how are you finding things? Are you finding that there's a big learning curve, or do you feel like your experience at your previous careers have been kind of set you up for this?
Yeah, so there's always a little bit of a learning curve with a new job. But in general, like we have a really great solid team here. So that helps a lot because there's always someone you can lean on and someone you can ask when just some of that like more detailed information I don't know yet. So there's always another expert between the three of us that I can lean on. And yeah, just agency experience in the past. I'm used to dealing with multiple different clients who have multiple different needs, reaching out about things and just kind of keeping that prioritized to make sure that I'm in communication with them. So that really transferred over.
Amazing. I would completely agree that your communication skills are top notch. You did some really cool projects while you were in agency. I would love for you to tell me a little bit more about specific projects that you're either really proud of or that were big success stories. I know that every time I go to Sask Center, I fangirl a little bit and say, guess who did that? Can you tell me about that particular project that we see? And I think every set of eyes in Saskatchewan has probably seen.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was at Phoenix Group, which is an agency based out of Regina, Great Western is one of their clients. So I just started with them, and the first project I get put on is a rebrand. Very exciting. Turns out it's rebranding Original 16 beer, both the cans and the package, like the boxes and kind of everything to go with that. So yeah, no pressure at all. But yeah, so like it was a super cool experience. I literally went from day one, like drawing sketches in my home office about like ideas for the cans, all the way through the process of presenting to the team, working with them to decide like where we wanted to go with the direction of it, all the way until like final files designed with everything to go. And like it was under a year, surprisingly, but it was like a very significant amount of my time
Yeah, I
there.
couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine actually having that brand package done or like going and pitching the design boards, because I'm sure you worked really closely with the senior leadership team on the rebrand and these pitches, because that's a really high stakes project.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was great. So the creative director there, he was great. He was always kind of available to me if we needed to talk, or just when I was presenting, if there was something we had discussed and maybe I hadn't mentioned it when I was presenting, but he knew it was an important point, would hop in, whatever. But yeah, like working directly kind of with their head of marketing to present things. And then as things got further along, like the president, everyone's there because obviously everyone has strong opinions on visuals. Whether you're a designer or not, everyone has strong opinions on those sort of things. So yeah, the whole higher level team was eventually in on those pitches.
Amazing. I even fangirl over that because I remember when that was done. And I remember Great Western just like not speaking to me as a brand. And now one of my favorite beers is actually the 016 White. It's absolutely like the most beautiful IPA. I love that it's Saskatchewan made from our own farmers here at home. Can you I think that this is always a fun thing to play with people who know the inside stories of brands. So Feed's logo obviously kind of nods to women's first opportunities to get into the workforce, and lots of that was in food service. So we tried to kind of take a swing towards old style restaurant brands. You see that kind of vintage logo feel in our font and our typing. Is there any hidden touch points in the 016 brand that we might not know about from just glancing at it at first look?
For sure. So I'll get to that in one second. I just want to say, you guys did such an amazing job with the FEAD logo and branding, like coming in, and it was already created. It's amazing to work with. And I legitimately thought that you guys had brought in an outside agency, just like based on the quality of it. So like stellar job first.
Thank you, because there were almost some tears in our little upstairs corner office that we had in the back corner of the food center that first month. I remember the names Nafisa and I were throwing out. They were awful. At one point, we had, oh gosh, it was Women Entrepreneurs in Agri-Food program. It's like, if you read it, it said WAPE. Like, it didn't make sense. I knew that awesome couldn't stay, because if I couldn't remember the awesome acronym, I couldn't expect anybody else to. So I remember on my way to work one day, I was like, eat. How could we get eat in it? And then because we had kind of the E and the A and like entrepreneurs, agri-food, we knew we wanted to use that. And then I was like, what are other words for entrepreneurs as they get along their path? And I was like, development. So we had eat, and I was like, could we do that? But weed also wasn't going to work, because that's probably not the most professional or the most reflective of what we do. And I remember just having a moment and being like, duh, females. And I stood up, I think, in my office, and I am not confident that I didn't cry tears of joy, because this was honestly, I spent 8 hours a day on this freaking name for like 2 weeks trying to figure out the acronym. So thank you. I appreciate that, especially coming from somebody who has as much experience as you have. I really appreciate that.
Well, I was going to say, is like, you almost cried. I was like, I don't believe that. Working through things like this, I know there was probably maybe a few tears, but tears of joy, tears of whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, no, you did an amazing job.
There was absolutely steam coming out of my ears at certain points. The like cartoon character where your head's about to explode was the first month that we were here trying to figure out, because at the same time, we didn't even have a logo or a name, but we were starting to build the new website. Yeah, we had the idea of the brand, but nothing else. So I'm sure you get that over everybody else. I would love to know, though, any of the hidden touch points that you have for 016. I know that they have an amazing founder story. So
yeah, absolutely. So I guess if anyone's not familiar, there was 16 employees at this brewery when it was going to be shut down. And they actually took the leap to kind of pull money together and buy this brewery. So the original 16 are these original 16 founders. So yeah, it's a very cool, very Saskatchewan story. So when I was first working on this, like, I had one design and it had like 16 little pinstripes at the bottom of the can. It was like, felt like super modern. I was like, this is it. Like, I was so confident about it. I was like, I nailed it, like whatever. And I was the only one who was sold on that one. But
I had those moments while I was doing the FEAD logo. I'm like, this is it, we got it. And then I like looked at it. I came back the next day. I'm like, this is trash.
Yeah, well, and it was very modern. It was very whatever, but it was too far away from where they had already been with original 16. Because that's the challenge, is we want modern, we want premium, but we don't want anything too different that we lose our existing customer. So I would say the kind of hidden pieces, or maybe you wouldn't necessarily notice at first glance. There's the crown at the top of the can, and that's actually taken from the original design. The crown is actually inside the seal. So that was like the crown I took out of it. So it's like, I was kind of just like deconstructing the pieces of it. And then the other thing that I always find interesting is, original 16, but here, a lot of places, the bar call is that 016. A lot of people don't take the time to say original. So that's that kind of like background graphic is literally the 016. And again, just like pulling the pieces from the logo and playing around with that and being like, is there like, it's known as 016 as well. So like, can I incorporate that into the design? And that was one I was like, at first when I was doing it, I was like, I don't know, like they're going to love it or they're going to hate it. I'm not sure. So it's funny because you have these kind of really clear ideas of you think where things are going to go, and then it ends up being a little different. But yeah, those are kind of the top pieces that come to mind when you asked
That's
about that.
so cool. Like, I had no idea about the crown piece, but now that you say that, I'm going to be looking for a crown on every pint glass that I see and every collateral that I see. I'm actually going to the City and Color concert tonight, so I'm going to be looking for that crown on those giant wall size, like life size beer cans.
Yeah.
Stickers are
Yeah.
plastered across the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's funny. This just kind of reminded me. So yeah, like, go to certain liquor stores or Sports on Tap or whatever. There's massive posters, and some of them I like designed the original ones, but I haven't been there for a bit. So new designers are just kind of using the brand style guide that I set up before I left. So it's like even stuff I didn't make, I'm like, oh, it's still a little bit mine feeling. But my favorite story that's like kind of nerdy is this summer at the X. They had massive blow-ups of the cans. So there's the massive 016 can, massive Great Western can. And so some of my friends and I went and we like took pictures in front of the 016 one. And my one friend's like, my friend made this, like while holding their original 16. So yeah, it was like just like a very weird but cool moment. So I have that on my Instagram because I was just like, yeah, you don't see a massive blow up of something you've made very often. So it was a cool moment for sure.
That is such a full circle moment. I think that's so funny. And I just feel like in Saskatchewan, I mean, we're going to have probably listeners out in Ontario that are like, what's 016? But in Saskatchewan, that's such like a success story that we set, like in my MBA at Edwards, we studied that as a case study and how that happened and all those stories. So that's such a cool flex though, to be standing here and be like, I didn't make this can, but I made this giant can. Okay, so you've obviously created a very successful visual brand, and it's now gone through a succession process to the new team, and you're still seeing those really homey touch points. How do you recommend for our founders to create really strong brand kits so that when we talked about this yesterday actually on our accelerator, when you're transitioning some of those social media, those marketing pieces to freelancers, that you make sure that those brands are really, and your kit is really consistent with what you want to communicate? Do you have any recommendations for those pieces?
For sure. So whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring an agency or a designer to do it for you, I would say kind of like the more information that you can pass on to the next person, the better. Because basically as brands get larger, they get really more and more and more detailed about how every font is chosen, sometimes even like the kerning, like very, very specific. And like a new founder doesn't need to go that far. But the point I'm kind of trying to get at is if you can go beyond just choosing some colors, you have your colors, great. You have maybe 2 fonts that you stick to. That's kind of my suggestion. Push it to 3. A couple fonts you stick to. And then after that, kind of thinking of the next levels of how are these things applied together? So what kind of photos or photography style do you like or are you using in the brand? How, if you have a photo and you have text, how does it appear on that? Is there anything you do or absolutely don't do? So just kind of some of those like rules in place of like almost kind of thinking through, okay, if I was the one designing a Facebook post, I know that I'm going to want the brand colors, I'm going to want the logo, I'm going to want some sort of photo. And so just kind of like the more examples that you can kind of bring in, the more visually you'll be able to kind of share the direction more simply, I think. And I'm also a big proponent of like phone calls or like video calls or whatever, just like having some kind of communication point early on that's not just emails back and forth, so that you can really speak to the person and like just some of those little questions that you have in your head, just get out and answering in terms of just little like particulars about how things are used or why.
I love that. And I especially love circling back to that why. That's a big, big, big thing that I advocate for, is making sure your brand's really rooted in those values, because it helps then with your calls to action. It helps with consumer loyalty and alignment. It helps with you and, making sure you have a North Star. And I'll be chatting about this in the Values Workshop at Advancing Women's Conference, but really like digging down deep and understanding that there is a certain amount of alignment that you'll have as a human with your business. And if there's alignment that's not quite there, that's okay from an internal perspective. And that only helps strengthen you. I would love to know, because at FEAD we do use some contractors, but we do a lot of it in-house. And I sometimes find, and I have with my personal businesses, I sometimes find it harder to work with freelancers and contractors for marketing and for collaterals. Could you tell me any pro tips that you kind of have for working with contractors in creating marketing and creative assets?
For sure. So kind of no matter how you end up hiring someone, just kind of like try and think of it as any other job. Like if I have someone coming to work on something in my house, they know that they're getting paid for fixing this specific thing. So it's kind of what I'm trying to say is just trying to be really specific, I guess, with what you're looking for, what your requirements on, timelines, any of that sort of thing. Because I find that artists, designers, like can be a little bit more laid back. And so sometimes there's maybe not the urgency you're looking for or whatever. So like the more detailed information you can give someone, like I need this many posts by this date with captions, I'd like hashtags, I'd like just whatever, like brain dump. Again, I'm a big fan of brain dumping, kind of everything you're looking for. And the more information you can kind of give them off the bat, the quicker that I think you'll get into a rhythm, because you're just kind of pre-answering a lot of those questions that are going to come up in the process. And just kind of slightly related is if you're looking for someone and you're not really sure, word of mouth is a really good way to kind of asking other business owners who they've worked with, I think is also just a good way to kind of make sure you're finding the right people that you want to be working with.
I love that. I mean, if anybody's going to take one thing away from today, it's lists and brain dumping.
Yeah.
Number one things. Tell me kind of about your experience at Three Farmers. Tell me their massive success story. They went through incredible capital raises. They've gone from a very small town farmer origin story, really truly the definition of farm to fork, to now, having agreements with airlines in Canada and exporting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me about your time there. I know everybody wants like kind of the inside scoop behind the curtain on Three Farmers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just really lucky in my timing of being there as well. Because like Three Farmers, they had grown, had done co-packing for a long time. Things were getting shipped around from production one place, packaging somewhere else, then you have to store it. So when I started at Three Farmers, it was a few months before they actually built their manufacturing facility here in Saskatoon. So they went through the process of having everything done externally to internally. And I did a lot of the social media was kind of one of the main pieces of my role. So like looking to grow LinkedIn and that sort of thing. I was recording kind of almost the entire process of the build and then bringing their pieces into it. So literally we went into a large concrete room that you don't know where the office is going to be, where everything's going to be, to like recording as these teams are building everything, building the walls, putting in flooring, bringing in the pieces to actually make this like a functioning business. And it was all over a couple months. It was crazy to see it all happen. But yeah, so it was another step. It was another huge step. They've been taking a lot of them. But yeah, so they're now at the point of manufacturing all their own product, shipping out from here. So they were able to add a lot of jobs here in Saskatoon with doing that. And so it was very cool to see them do that. And things like Porter Airlines, that was one that started with them. when I was there. So it was very cool seeing photos of the snacks on the airplanes and just kind of thinking about fun social media posts to do around that sort of thing. So yeah, it was a very exciting time to be there.
I always love to just like reflect and like have the peace of knowing how much positive change can happen in like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year. Because, you know, like you said, 3 farmers went from an empty concrete building and then in a few months, you know, having equipment moved in and it being changing their entire supply chain. I remember seeing those videos actually on LinkedIn specifically. And I remember actually the front doormats and seeing the
Yes.
logo in the front doormats. Was that
And
you?
yes, yeah. And
Oh my
it
God,
was
that's
me. But
funny.
it's so funny because it was literally like, oh, they had just been gotten like installed. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And like no one's got them muddy yet. So I like went through and just was recording that, and just of like all the different kind of content. Like that was one of the things that like highly exceeded what I was expecting in terms of like, it's just a little thing. It's doormats, but people like loved it. They thought it was like super interesting, or just like it felt like this really like significant piece in the whole process, and it's in some ways so small.
It's, you know, like a doormat. You would never think that that would make an impact or a difference. But I
Yeah,
specifically remember that post because I remember seeing, I'm like, those are cool doormats, you know? And it's those little touch points that like it's in branding and marketing that you maybe don't think are going to make a difference. That, and it's sometimes so hard to explain that to a senior leadership team of like, you know, I think we need to invest in the doormats. But a year later, I'm sitting on this podcast talking about the fact that there were these freaking doormats at 3 farmers. And that was the thing I remembered from your video that you made was the doormats.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's too funny. And
Stop me dead in the
all
scroll.
those pieces.
um, I would love to know what advice you have for kind of our founders. What general piece of advice do you have that's a good touch point for our founders, you know, they can take home and implement it today?
um I think when it comes kind of just to all the marketing stuff, whether it be social media, whether it be email, like any of those pieces, consistency is important, but don't beat yourself up about it either. So it's like, instead of feeling like you have to be posting on social media every single day, if you can make sure to post once or twice a week consistently, like that's great. So just, I think like, instead of looking at it as this like massive thing that's like taking over your entire life, like just looking at it as like little steps. It's like, all right, my goal this quarter is every week I'm going to do 2 social media posts. We're going to do, having a newsletter every single week was way too much for us, so let's move it to once a month or bi-weekly and see how that goes in terms of creating a balance. Because yeah, I think it's important to, it's important to be consistent, to be there and stuff. But if you're doing it to like the detriment of being able to continue being consistent, or like continue to do all the other pieces you have to do as an entrepreneur, then you're kind of almost working against yourself. So just kind of trying to find what works for you. And you know, if you get comfortable at that twice a month newsletter, or once a month newsletter, bump it up to twice, or like you can still move back forward again, but just, it's okay that you're not on everything all the time.
I completely agree. And having those like those small habits to start a really great foundation is they're a really great step to transition yourself maybe into something more, or you know, they'll grow you to that stage that you're ready to hire, or like find a contractor to help you with those pieces. So I think that's really fantastic advice for the team. I know we chatted yesterday on the accelerator too. My mind's just in social media because of yesterday with the Farm to Fork Accelerator. Um, Not getting yourself down. I remember somebody saying yesterday, they were like, oh, well, this really great entrepreneur told me that I was terrible at social media because I didn't know that I had to have a quiz or like one of those fancy buttons on my third story. I this I love it. I love that you can get that granular on algorithm, but you're never going to hack a multi-billion-dollar corporation's algorithm as a small business. And I think that just, you know, showing up as consistently as your capacity allows, especially as a female entrepreneur with so many variables in your life. Lots of our founders, they have kids, they have families, they have maybe 2 businesses, or they have a full-time job, or they're going to school. So I think that advice of, having grace for yourself and taking it one day at a time is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of add on that really quick, I think that kind of focus on quality over quantity in terms of content and that sort of thing. So again, going back to the 3 farmers thing, it's a little behind the scenes moment. That is so much more interesting to people than a million styled photos of your product. Obviously, you're going to be sharing styled photos of your product because it's beautiful and that's important. But again, when you're getting into social media and stuff, the things that tend to do well is that like little look behind that people wouldn't have otherwise got. That's kind of part of the reason that they're following you on social media and not just on your newsletter.
Yeah, I love showing up messy. Things aren't perfect. They're not groomed. Last night, I shared on my story that literally it was 7:30 at night and my entire plan for dinner was Haribo gummy bears because I do not have it together. I had a big day at work, was jumping back into work. And just like, it's funny. It's a human experience. Live and learn and just ride the wave. I would love to know, personal look inside Lindsay's life. I'm going to ask you some speed questions here. What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Pineapple on pizza? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
What? Okay.
Sweet and salty is always a good combo, even if it's on pizza.
You're wild. Mustard or ketchup?
Mustard.
Interesting. Yellow or Dijon?
Yellow. Kind of basic.
Interesting. Favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
You are a millennial, aren't you?
Yeah, I almost said TikTok. I can waste a lot of time on there, but
TikTok is a time suck. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Favorite color?
Purple.
Favorite type of font?
I am usually a sans serif sort of girl.
Oh, I like it. Basic but bougie.
Yeah.
Favorite vacation spot?
Again, sounding bougie, Hawaii.
Favorite thing to do on your time off other than TikTok?
Definitely probably playing dodgeball. That's I spend a lot of time doing that. So.
Interesting. What is one hidden thing in your life that people don't know about you?
Oh, I should have saved the dodgeball one for that. What is a hidden thing that people don't know about me?
I always tell people I was a massive nerd in high school and I was on the provincial curling team and got trained by an Olympic curler.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Super nerdy, super niche.
Yeah, okay. Well, I am just going to add on to the dodgeball one. But basically, I am on a team that is going to nationals in BC for dodgeball in the end of June, early July. So that's something that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know. Oh my gosh,
you're a beast!
Yeah.
I would love to know your favorite cocktail, drink, beverage.
Ooh, lately, I've been really into an Aperol Spritz.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Once basic but bougie again.
Yeah.
Tell me your favorite restaurant in Saskatoon or Saskatchewan.
Ooh, that's a hard one. We have so many good restaurants in Saskatoon. But I will say probably one of my top ones is Una, based on delicious pizza and the location cannot be beat. I live very, very close to Broadway. I love
Broadway.
So it's lovely. There's a lot of other good places.
What is one goal you have for FEAD?
One being we're really shooting to get 600 FEAD members within the next few months. We're at 400 and some, I believe, right now. So there's a little bit of a push there. And yeah, we've got some very awesome in-person and hybrid conferences coming up. So just like pushing those to be like the best that they can be, I would say are kind of like the definitely top of mind things for me right now.
I think now's a good time. I mean, better than any for you to be able to tell the FEAD fam what you're doing to drive some membership,
Yeah.
and what your big project has been in the last few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been kind of putting together a list and now boxes of member products from FEAD members. So going from mustard to hot sauce to coffee, we have brought together a bunch of our favorite products and put them all together in boxes. And we're going to be sending them out as thank yous for members, like referrals or signups. It's a little bit in process figuring out exactly how and when these boxes are going to go out. But I'm very excited to continue to share a little bit more about those on social media because it's such a great way to see all the cool stuff that FEAD members are doing.
Yeah, right now our proposed plan, I think that we've talked about as a group, is if you sign up to be a member of FEAD, which you can do for free at www.fead.ca, FEAD/join us, /join. I think it's /join. Lindsay's going to pull it up for me right now.
Yeah.
You can sign up for a free FEAD membership, and actually you can be entered if you sign up as a member, and you can enter a friend for a FEAD member box if you fill out that little referred by box. So make sure you let us know who referred you, because they could win a prize, you could win a prize. We're hoping to have the first member box ship out in March. So these boxes are fantastic. Lindsay, what is our URL for that?
Yeah, so we're FEAD, FEAD.ca/JOIN, join.
Join. There we go. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us today. We are so excited to have you transition on as the host of the Friends of FEADies podcast. I know we have some ringers coming in for the next few episodes that we're so excited to feature. Lindsay, any last words?
Just I guess thank you for kind of passing the baton, so to speak, to now have me come in and I get to be in your spot and talk to some really cool entrepreneurs. So I'm really excited about it. And I think we're going to have some really, really great episodes coming out this year.
Yeah, I couldn't be honestly more honored to have you part of the team. I couldn't be more excited to work alongside you and support these entrepreneurs. So excited for what 2024 has to offer. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Once again, you can find us on all of our socials at FEAD Canada, FEAD Canada. You can join our Facebook group if you sign up for our email list. The link is always there on our bi-monthly emails. And you can check us out at www.fead.ca.
Thank you to our listeners for indulging your entrepreneurial appetite with this episode of Friends of FEADies, brought to you by FEAD Canada, our funding partner ISET, and founding partner, the Saskatchewan Food Centre. If anything we have discussed today has ignited an entrepreneurial fire within you, but you're not quite sure how to get started, or you're craving mentorship and coaching to help grow your business, please reach out to us at fead.ca. That's FEAD.ca. Connect with us on social media. We're sprinkled all over the digital landscape, and our team is ready to provide the mentorship and coaching you need to flourish. At FEAD, we're here to empower women in the agri-food industry, so don't hesitate to reach out to us to join our vibrant community of foodpreneurs. Until next time, bake those dreams into reality, stay hungry for success, and continue to nourish your entrepreneurial spirit with FEAD. Bon appetit.